On April 12th, 10 people were shot on a subway train in New York City. While police have charged a man with pulling the trigger, one of the victims is taking aim at the gun it's claimed he used. Eileen Sturr is suing gunmaker Glock over the way it markets and distributes its firearms.
They intentionally took certain actions that, number one, created oversaturation of guns, which ultimately created a secondary market, which allowed purchasers, whether they purchased the guns legally or illegally, with a criminal intent to cause this sort of gun violence.
Since 2005, gun makers have been mostly shielded from legal action by a federal law called the Defense of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. Manufacturers can only be sued if they knowingly violate laws in the making of their product. So some state lawmakers have been looking for ways around the federal law, aiming to exploit loopholes that would allow them to sue gun makers. The subway shooting case is being brought under a New York state law introduced last year, allowing gun makers to be sued for creating a public nuisance that puts the public's safety and health at risk.
What some of these states have tried to do, depending on whether the Congress in those states is pro or anti-gun, I suppose, is pass the law that a judge would say does not step on the objectives of the federal government. In New York, that's what happened. So it really depends on the state in question.
The father of one of the Uvalde victims has taken the first steps towards potentially suing Daniel Defense, the manufacturer of the semi-automatic rifle used by the gunman. In traditionally pro-gun Texas, they're hoping to rely on a precedent set by the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, where the Connecticut Supreme Court allowed victims' families to sue gunmaker Remington for violating the state's marketing laws. They settled for $73 million earlier this year. But gun enthusiasts say such legal action sets a dangerous example.
If this happens with the firearms industry, that vicariously binds them to a piece of equipment that they built that had no flaws in it, and someone uses it illegally, why should the gun manufacturer be held responsible for that? If somebody borrows your car and they kill 3 or 4 pedestrians after they've run up on the curb, is the car manufacturer responsible for that?
Opponents argue the lawsuits are designed to put gun makers out of business rather than address safety fears. Meanwhile, lawyers say the New York and Texas cases could have the potential to change the legal landscape. Sarah Walton, CGTN, New York.